All right. Hello, everybody. So welcome to episode, God, are we on 3? I think we're just on 3 of TEKLAB, the TEKLAB podcast. I am, I'm of course your host, Zhang, namesake of the channel with my longtime co-host. You guys don't even know. We've done like 12 podcasts. It's crazy.
Or more.
Or more, maybe. Yeah. Some we don't even remember because they're lost to the archives of time. But my co-host, Dan, aka Jana Kazama, aka Prinny Juice, what's going on?
Hey yo.
So hope
Not a lot.
not, we're just gonna talk some Tekken. I'm
Just
kind
brand new games.
of yes, which we will be talking about at length. I'm also kind of using this as an excuse not to do a basics guide this week because this last week was pretty busy. So yeah, this is a lot easier than putting together a guide. But I'll have another one up this coming week. My goal that I try to set for myself is to have one of those videos out every week. Sometimes things get busy, or maybe I just need to spend some time actually playing the game and labbing and doing that kind of stuff before I can actually put a video together. But before we start talking about the game, though, a couple of quick housekeeping things for everybody. First, Spotify. If you're watching this on you or listening to this on YouTube, I am also putting these up on Spotify. The link to that is in the video description below, so be sure to check that out. Similarly, as I start every video, please consider the Patreon. Supporting your creators is a top priority, I think, for everybody if you want to keep content creators doing what they're doing. So please consider that. All our patrons, we have some patrons that have been around like a long time at this point. Cause I think, if I'd have to look it up, but I want to say like 2017, 2018 or so is when I first started like dipping my toe into the water for these guides, and we have a couple of patrons that have been around since then. So those guys are awesome. Yeah. And they're, that support is largely what incentivizes me to keep going, right? Because there's lots of people watching and getting help from it, but also just the fact that there are people that enjoy the content or even just respect it enough to donate is a huge deal and makes me want to keep making more. So,
We love your face.
indeed, we very much do. And on that same note, on YouTube has like its own like analog to memberships or subscriptions or whatever, or paid subscriptions. I don't have those turned on because YouTube takes, I think, like a significantly bigger cut from the creators than Patreon does. So if you're interested in doing like a monthly thing, those are disabled on YouTube. So you'd have to do the Patreon for that. However, I think it might just be automatic, but the YouTube has like it's like a donation thing similar to Twitch and whatnot. I think they call them like super chats or something like that. But so if you do, like if you have a Google Wallet or whatever, you can always donate that way. I think you just have to do a special comment on a video or something. I've never done it, but it's something along those lines, similar to how Twitch and all those places do it. So, but any support, we love you guys. And we love this game, and I want to keep playing it and keep learning and keep
all chats, so not even just super chats.
Yes. All chats are welcome too. Yeah. It's, I guess we can kind of use that to segue into the game. We've been getting some interesting comments. The stuff on on the guides that always crack me up. So the basics guides, I try to create them in a way, like I try to create the script in a way that someone who's brand new to the game can still kind of understand what's going on. The one thing that you would really need to be able to understand even a little bit of the guides is notations, so that you know what moves I'm talking about. I think it is a little, even that is a little like iffy because I keep the command inputs and stuff on for those clips. So even if you don't know the notations, you can still see the commands and see what I'm doing to figure out what the moves are. But it's really funny. I try not to talk about frames or any. I even have started to limit myself on using technical terms like crushes and stuff. Instead, I kind of use more general terminology like, oh, it goes under highs and stuff like that. But every once in a while, you'll still get these comments where the one that sticks out to me the most is that someone made a comment on the law guide and they were like, what does DSS mean? I was like, it is just really funny to me because, for one, anytime that I mention a stance, I've been doing it where I just say the acronym and then I mention, oh, that's a stance. We will talk about it in a moment. So you don't need to know what it means. You just need to know it's the stance that I am referring to. But it's funny kind of getting those little comments because they pop up every now and then. It's like, come on.
And we forget because we've been doing this so long too.
Well, it's not, I don't even think I mean, a little bit of it is that, but like, what else am I supposed to do? Like, am I also supposed to say, hey, DSS stands for Dragon Sign Stance? Thank you. Moving on. Like, why do you need to know specifically what DSS means? Like, I called out that it was a stance. We will now talk about the stance. It's called DSS. Let's not get hung up on what it's referring to or what the acronym stands.
The name Dragon Sign Stance, but I don't know. To me, it's more like Dragon Shimmy Stance or something. I don't know.
Yeah,
a little shimmy,
which is fine. But it's like if someone like asked me like what each stance in acronym in the game stood for, I'm sure I couldn't tell you all of them. That I would have to look them up. But if you say it, I know what you're talking about. And if
Cubby just hit me with one too.
Oh, did he?
Elisa, LDS. Like, I'd never heard that one. But I think that's like her flying but indestruct mode version. Just as an example, sorry.
No, that makes sense. But well, the funny thing to me, like in the context of the guides, is that you don't need to know. Right? Like, you don't need to know what that stands for. And before, it's not like I'm just throwing it out randomly. Like I mentioned this, I'm trying to remember how exactly I phrased it. I think with all of the characters, I'm kind of doing the same thing where I mention something that goes to stance. And then I say, this goes to his XYZ stance. Don't worry about it yet. We will talk about it in a moment. So it's like, this is the stance. This is what it's called. We will be going over it. But why do you need to know what DSS means? Like, why is that important to you? Like, I've set up what the stance is. I've told you what it's called, like what we call it. I don't know why you need to know that specific information. But it's just one of those deals where, like, you can never make everyone happy, right? Like, someone's always going to find some little things like, oh, hey, you could have said this, or you could have done that, or you forgot to say this. It's like, yeah, and I could have just read you a book on the move list and told you exactly everything that this character has, but then we'd be here for 2 hours. So,
I do accept a complaint like you guys never refer to 34 as, Herschel Walker or anything.
Oh,
you haven't done that for like 15 years.
Yeah, I know.
I accept that complaint. You're right.
I do like, we have, especially with the Tekken 8 videos popping up, we have been getting, well, actually, not just the Tekken 8 videos. Since we did the first episode of this podcast, we have gotten a few comments of people who are like, I listened to your guys' podcast forever ago. I did not connect the dots that this was you guys, because we just don't do the podcasting thing anymore. It's just, the channel is guide content mostly, or little tidbits of information and tech. So, those are always the fun ones that, I remember listening to you guys from 15 years ago. It's like, yeah, thanks for dating me. So cool. So yeah, so that's been really fun though. Like, I've been enjoying doing the guides. Obviously I always wish I had more time to get them done faster and everything, but I think I've racked my brain to try to make that process as efficient as possible. So I think, I would love to be like a FeedEX where I can make a 35 minute video going over something as just a part of a stream and then get 50,000 views on it, but it's just never going to happen. It's never going to happen.
Long-term streams where something important happens and you can bring it up in the moment.
Yeah. And then you can just clip it and then toss it on the channel. So I wish I had that kind of structure, but we just don't. I have to do the scripted videos and all that. But that said, let's talk about some Tekken 8.
I like it.
So the last time we did the podcast, it wasn't out yet. We were preparing for it. So now that we have actually had, a month, a little over a month of the game, I guess we can, the place that I was going to start logically, just because it's the place everywhere starts, is kind of the tier discussion, right? Like who's good, who's bad. But I guess we can start even more generally than that as to how do you like the game? How do you like the fully released version? Any particular changes from the CNT? What was the last one? The CNT was the first one. CBT was the second one. Any notable changes from that version that you're like, whoa, I'm glad they put this in, or whoa, I hated that they changed this, or whatever? Anything that jumps out to you?
I mean, they did quite a bit different and cleaned up a lot of like little things, and even still, like at this moment, they're doing their regular patches. We have another patch predicted on the way here, where they're just kind of giving it a little touch up. And there's some people that are complaining that the game already needs some of these, but if you think about it, every other game out there, like Tekken 7, it spent like a year or more, over in Japan and Korea, where they just kept making updates. If you remember, Shaheen and Claudio's hop kicks pushed away too far, so you couldn't get punishments, and there's things that they're fixing, but it's really minimal. But how do I like the game? I love it. This is in my opinion the best one yet, and I know that some people don't like how aggressive or how many options people have, but I think this is where it should have gone. This is a phenomenal game. I cannot say enough good things about it, and everyone's fun. You said we're going to talk about tiers. I mean, it's narrower than ever.
Well, that's kind of every time the conversation pops up or somebody mentions it, I actually just go back to something that you said, and I think have been saying for a while now, even prior, with the CBT and stuff, is that this seems to be a game of top tiers. Like there is one character that this is obviously just my opinion, but there's only one character that I think I could call quote unquote bad. Especially compared to the rest of the cast. And that's Leroy, for anybody that wants to know. But that's it. Like,
and that's conventional wisdom now.
Yeah,
it's not even just you bad-mouthing him.
Yeah, the running joke is that, oh, hey, such and such seems broken. I guess that means Leroy needs a couple more nerfs. I don't. It's just so weird what they're doing with that character. But he's it, right? Like I have not seen anything from any other character that says to me, oh, that character is gonna struggle. That character is not gonna win. I think even like, the traditional bears, right? Like bears have kind of been shit on. Like they seem good. Like maybe not oppressive, but really good. Like they have a lot of nasty stuff.
They are so much fun and they're so different. And that's really the other thing I love about this game is, I think even in the last video we were talking about how, oh, they nerfed such and such and it's not good anymore. But we were saying, everybody's different. They've got new things. The bear is the perfect example. I mean, everybody used to rely on down back 2, and now it's launch punishable. They still have it, but they have so many other things now. You are not limited as much.
Mm-hmm.
It's just, that's how this game is.
Yeah, exactly. So aside from that one exception, like everybody seems good. And there is no doubt in my mind that when Eddie gets released, he's going to be stupid. Right. So it'll just add, it'll just add to the top tiers. Which makes the
And
tier
they're doing
discussion
great
hard.
with him too.
Yeah. Yeah. So,
They're making him fresh.
yeah, it'll
Sorry.
be, well, they haven't released any like actual footage of his gameplay, right? We just got that like
Yeah.
mocap thing. Oh, did they?
Yeah, they had a whole little presentation and they showed
Oh,
off
was it
some
like
of
a
his stuff.
Tekken talk or
It was a
something? I might have missed it.
Yeah, it was in a Tekken talk. Yeah, and like relaxed. He's not laying on the ground in the same way. He's kind of like in a crouched lean, and his handstand it faces you now, and he can like roll to the side out of handstand. I mean, like they completely redid him, but at the same time they're catering to all the communities with him. Like he's still super easy to play. He's 3-3-3-3-3 or 4-4-4-4-4. You have those options, but then a smarter player knows that they're going to go about those paths, based on. But they completely like redesigned him, and I love that. It's kind of like how Julia, right? Julia was ridiculously boring because every game, all the way up until I want to say 5, when they added that new wind roll stuff, she was just the exact same character. And now Eddie looks fresh. They completely like they gave him that new look, and people are trolling on it, but it symbolizes the complete makeover they gave him.
Right. Yeah, that'll be interesting. I guess I need to add that to my list. I completely was so in my own
Eddie.
world doing stuff that I missed that little release. Do we have a date yet on that? Did they say when he's releasing?
March, April. So
March, April.
anytime now. Yeah.
Anytime.
Yeah, and the previous patch was February, March, and it ended up being like the second week of March.
Right. Makes sense. All right. So, so I guess, if we just work under the assumption that Eddie is going to be strong too, it makes all the like the tier videos and the tier discussions and stuff that people do really funny because it's really hard to differentiate. Like we can do like a quick top 5, but there's like so many characters that I would have like tied for these spots, right? So like everyone's saying like the consensus, if you want to call it that, amongst players is that Dragunov is number 1. And I think that's largely because he's just so easy. Like his stuff is so obviously good and it's very simple. So it's very easy to see. But like I would probably put him in my top 5 as well. Like I don't necessarily disagree with that, but like rounding out the top 5, we've obviously been having that campaign to nerf Ling. So a lot of people are complaining about that. Same sort of deal with Yoshi. I would put him in top 5, and he's not like the campaign is not as aggressive as Ling
anymore.
Yeah, mostly because she's taken it over. But I mean, there's still that undercurrent of comments and complaints about how Yoshi is in this game. If you had to push me, in fact, to pick a number 1 character that I put above everybody else, I probably would still pick Yoshi. But oh man, I had this. I was thinking about this the other day. I did have
Fang's another common one that people throw in there.
Yeah, and Fang is good. I don't know if I would put him in my top 5, but he back to the point that we were making, he certainly has a lot of nasty crap. I had somebody like picked for my number 5 or number 4, and I can't remember who the hell it was. But then like when I was thinking about it, I was like, who would I put in my top 5? At the number 5 spot, I just had a bunch of people basically tied. So like Reina, Victor, Azu, all new characters. Jack, he's in there. You can probably put Law in there. I haven't seen enough of characters like the crazy characters like Huarong or June, but I would not be surprised if they're like sitting right outside looking in.
They are.
I'm trying to, oh God, that's going to bug the hell out of me. I did have a number 4 and I can't remember who it was, but yeah, like it's just like this big mix of characters that are right there that can all beat the hell out of each other. And largely, it goes back to what you were talking about, where it's a fresh game with a new system with, even with the stuff that has is legacy that comes in. They've tweaked that, they've tweaked those formulas. Like grabs still exist, obviously, but they work differently. The armor moves work differently. Counter hits even work a little bit differently. So they like did all these changes that make things a lot more different than you would think that they would.
I'm going to speculate your number 4 was King.
Yes. Thank you. Yes, that's who it was. That's 100% who it was. Yes, it was King. But it's just a mush, right? It's just a mush of characters up at the top. And then you can probably start to single out some characters that are quote unquote mid tier. But in this game, you have a bunch of characters sitting in S tier and then a bunch sitting in A plus, right? Like there's just two categories. My
tier list is S plus, S, and A. That's
it. Yeah, and then, Leroy's an F, but he's it. He's the only outlier. And he might get it.
And he does a lot of damage.
It's
a lot. He doesn't sustain.
It's funny that you say that, because the irony is that as much as I think he's a garbage character, I've been starting to play ranked more these past couple weeks because it's what the kids do. And I'm like, well, if I'm not at least at a decent rank, then these little kids are going to make fun of me. And I've only run into a single Leroy that entire time. And this happened the other day. And I lost 2-0. And the reason I lost is because I guess I was playing too Unga Bunga or something. And I got hit with nonstop forward 2-2s and orbitals. And that was pretty much it. That was how he beat me. And after he beat me, I was like, you know what? Okay, he beat me, but that is not sustainable. If we play 5 more matches, chances are he doesn't win any of them. But it's one of the, because, for those who don't know Leroy, forward 2-2, it's a launcher and it's fast, but it's launch punishable. And if you just chill and just play basic defense, you can blow that up. Orbital is an orbital. There's not, it just is what it is. It's a safe, low crushing launcher. And he just randomly not randomly, but he kept getting the reads on my lows, and I kept getting orbitaled for it. And then that's all it was. Like, that was the whole match. And he does, the one thing that he is okay with is that his damage is pretty good. So if he's getting those launches, he can kill you with a couple, especially if, you're on a smaller stage. So that's kind of what happened to me. I still don't think he's a good character, but it's one of those things where, you can still, if you're making the right reads, anybody can win. I mean, everybody talked about how Panda was trash in T7 and that character won a TWT. So,
And I would argue that the worst character in 8 is better than the worst character in 7.
Oh, yes.
Even
by
after
leagues.
their many seasons.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, I would totally agree with that. But I thought that was funny because I still, it didn't change my opinion on Leroy, but I was like, of course I would run into a Leroy, the only Leroy I've run into, and I would just keep running into this horribly unsafe launcher and orbitals. And that's going to be my story. Mm-hmm. It was sad.
It's always hard when you played the character too, because you expect certain, certain plans.
Yeah. Yep. And I mean, it wasn't like I was unprepared for the matchup or anything. Like every time he was doing, and anything that was different. So, the general, there's a couple ways that you can approach, defending his hermit. And, one of them is still to sidestep right, because you can sidestep the vast majority of the moves he does out of hermit with sidestep right. And that, for the most part, that worked, right? Like I was still getting that when he was doing stuff like, because a lot of people forget about this, but 1-1-1+2, which is his jab string into the little rapid punch stuff, that's punishable. I was properly punishing stuff like that when it popped up, but the juggles, I just couldn't overcome. Got hit with too many of them. It happens. But so yeah. Anyway,
Absolutely.
beyond Leroy.
I love the game though. I like the changes. They've made even a lot of good system changes. Back roll. I mean, you used to be just easily murdered for back rolling. They changed it where the first half of the animation, if you hit someone back rolling, it's the same as like when someone side rolls on the ground. Um, so you have to time those back roll launches a little bit better, but they didn't completely like ruin Oki. It's just different. So wake up games are still very much alive. It is just all very much like the person with the initiative and the advantage. I mean, they get to continue rushing you down, going for chip, going for these better and better mix-ups, and I think they did a good job at trying to take this turtle game and make it a little bit harder to turtle.
And you see it with everybody, right? Like even high level players that are playing this game, they are mashing the fucking buttons. They are on it. They are aggressive. So everybody kind of gets the idea that this game heavily rewards buttons. And then the only thing that really slows people down is that as aggressive as this game can be and all the new offensive tools, even inherent tools because of system changes that you have, there's also a lot of nasty counter hit stuff and the changes to like armor moves, things like that. Well, you were talking about this the other day, but I think one thing that is kind of snuck under the radar for a lot of people is the change to power crushes, where if they absorb an attack pretty much across the board, they get safer. I don't think there's a single example where they become unsafe, strictly speaking. Maybe against Yoshi, because a lot of them go from like negative 14, 13 down to like negative 8 or 9. So maybe Yoshi can still flash some of those. But for the most part,
That's certainly possible.
But for the most part, they're safe, right, against the rest of the cast. And I think a lot of people are kind of overlooking that. So like one thing that I've sort of relied on with Reina is that in her Sen stance, she has that power crush in there. And that power crush is really important, not just for the mix-up nature of the stance, but also, the T7 meta was if somebody has like this armor setup, there are a lot of ways to like sneak in a really quick jab combo or something and still be able to block before the armor move hits you. And then you could then punish the armor. So you're getting like a punish on top of a punish. And now you can't really do that anymore. And with something like Reina's Sen 1-2, you can because of the slowdown for when you absorb, unless it whiffs, right? Because of the slowdown that happens when an armor move absorbs an attack, you can confirm that for her. So you can't, just straight up confirm it, like if it just hits them and finish it. But if someone tries to do that and then you get the slowdown, you can confirm whether you want to continue or not, but it doesn't even really matter. Right. So it doesn't matter if it hits, because it's going to be safe either way. So that's kind of like how those sort of situations have changed, because if they don't do anything and they just sit there or they're trying to duck or whatever, you have to make the read as the Reina player to whether or not you're going to finish that string. Whereas if they attack into you, you can confirm if that happens and then always finish the string. And if they are unable to block it, cool, you get the string, it'll just hit. If they are able to block it, doesn't matter, it's still going to be safe. So like it changes the meta for those kinds of mix-ups, especially in stance. Hers might be a little bit of a unique situation because it's a 2-hit thing, right? The power crush is only on the first hit, but because it's a combo, not every character is going to have something like that. But I can, just off the top of my head, I can think of like Huarong, right? Down forward 3-4. Has a similar sort of deal there where I can't remember. I don't think that was confirmable in T7. If they just sit there, because you can delay it, but I don't think it's confirmable. Unless that same situation where if they swing into it, it doesn't matter if the second hit is going to connect or not. You can confirm with that slowdown and just go ahead and finish it, because it'll either hit or they'll block it and it'll be safe. So yeah, just like little changes like that have just like really had big impacts, on those little metas, those little mix up situations or whatever. So, it's interesting. It's interesting. I like exploring that little stuff. So
I also like how they're not hiding behind the technical ability anymore, or at least not as much. Like, for example, everybody always talks about, yeah, but perfect electric is hard to do. So why balance it, when it's that hard? Because they should just get what they deserve. Well, a lot of those same situations for across the whole cast, I mean, there may be more ways to deal with it still.
mhm.
So I like the balancing on the overall. So even like you listed these power crushes as an example, is now they've really opened up everybody's move list to where, maybe they found a way to stop one of your strategies. And before, like in Tekken 7, you might have been immensely handicapped in how you can form your offense if they know how to appropriately defend that one situation. But like in your example of the power crushes, so they might choose to jab and then also take a punish. Well, now it's safe if you absorbed an attack. So you made the right read, so you get the safety of it. And now maybe if they blindly try to punish, forgetting that they absorbed an attack or something, you could maybe duck their jab or something.
Mm-hmm.
So you have more options across the board offensively.
Yeah. I think we'll see that more often too. Because I've seen people trying to punish power crushes after they absorb an attack and just not realizing that those are now safe. So that's one of the things
Another thing you could be autopiloting.
Yeah, well, that's why I bring it up, because I think that there's a lot of those little system changes that people have not caught up with in terms of their muscle memory, or like being active with reading, like being active with their brain and reading the situation and like actually, not autopiloting it, like you just said. And so that's one of those things that will inevitably evolve as the game gets older, because we're just not used to that yet. So no one's doing it. Or, in that situation, rather than punishing, you'll just, people start maybe taking a mix up or something instead. Right. So, so yeah.
And then they also did a lot of system changes, like back turned hop kicks don't launch, but they do appear to get off of the ground a little bit earlier. Wake up kicks are all safe, but you can still, beat them if you're intelligent enough to like walk out of the way or space it, or even choose a power crush through it or a
Right.
crush move. They just the game makes a lot more sense. They just want you to play faster, and I'm 100% on board with that. Not just because it's fun to hit buttons, but also when the game is as defensive as it has been, like throughout its entire series career. It's like, how are they ever going to fall for stuff if this consistent defense always works or is always more in their favor? So now you having these situations where you have to hit buttons or make a decision, it allows you to fall into the traps a little bit better. So the better crafted path is going to win.
100%. And I think people like misconstrue that a little bit, or at least beginner players misconstrue that to mean that like defense doesn't matter or that you shouldn't play defense. Because if you don't play defense, or you still don't understand like the basic fundamentals of defensive Tekken, you can't really take advantage of any of this stuff. Like, you still need to understand how sidestep works. You're still going to need to be able to backdash. There are going to be times where you just need to block. Like, you just need to. In fact, the most obvious situation that happens all the time where you will need to do that is a heat engager. Like, they clearly designed that so that you're going into your meter with a mix-up. You get a free mix-up. It's just that simple.
A higher reward mix-up.
Right, a higher reward mix-up. And sure, if someone is like planning on doing a slow low after the engager. Maybe you can beat that out with a crush or something like that.
That's a choice.
But that's a choice. Exactly. That the mix-up is still theirs to take. And in that situation, you can choose to try to hit a button, but you will have to acknowledge that that choice comes with a ton of risk and that you will lose if they choose pretty much anything else.
Yeah.
So that's a situation where, well, and I've just been seeing that a lot. Like even in, yeah, you're in blue ranks as well, but you like, there are clearly some players in there that have technical skill, but like there are so many like in that, like, bro, I'm plus 1 billion here. Like I can just hit you with any, I don't even need to use a low because you are being so aggressive and you're just swinging and you just gotta chill. Just take the block and it's fine. And then you will get to play afterwards. But so like you still need to have like that awareness that defense still exists in the game. And there are a lot of, I mentioned the crushing, but there are a lot of defensive options like that you can utilize, but blocking is still good. It still exists in Tekken for a reason. And people still have really strong, and if anything, block punishers have gotten more ruthless, right? In Tekken 8. So yeah, this is one of those things I wanted to mention because like the game is super aggressive, and sometimes people kind of overlook the fact that defense is still a thing that you need to play sometimes. And it's still all about
more important than ever, if anything.
Yeah. But like you said, the game in general is just faster. So I think people just don't realize that defense is still being played. But people are just taking their turns faster. So, but just kind of a thing that I think everybody's still getting used to as well. Because it is really, I don't want to say surprising, but it's eyebrow raising how aggressive, like, even players like Nee and Arslan, how aggressive they are in this game. And that's across the board. Like they are not unique in that play style or that approach. Like everybody is playing that way. So. And
I mean, people get frustrated when their old defense tricks don't work. And this is something that we actually experienced back in Tekken 4 also, right? Defense has become a bigger skill. So if you want to play defensive, it's still good. It's still recommended on, how you do it, but they now have more options to stop you from doing that. So you can't just, sidestep and low parry your way to victory. Cause even grabs track now.
Mm-hmm.
So you're going to have to sidestep, do your low parry. You might get grabbed. You might have to do your throw break. There's also the whole, like, if you did depending on what move, that grab might not be breakable. So you're going to have to play a little bit more careful.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the grabs are so weird in this game. They're so weird. And it's really funny watching it because everybody, literally no one is immune to getting thrown around in this game. Nobody.
I still buffer buttons all the time. So that pretty much makes these grabs unbreakable to me in those situations.
Right.
If you don't know, you can't hold a button and then break a grab anymore.
Yeah.
You have to have let go entirely and then do your throw break.
Yep. It's pretty funny because it impacts everybody. And I mean, the whole timing issue in general is one of those things that everybody is getting used to because they change the timing on everything. I've actually been complaining about this for a long time, but as fast as this game is, the one thing that they actually slowed down was interactions. And I think that's why the game is faster, is because everyone is having a little bit more time to think about what they want to do next. So like there have been some examples like people have put up on Twitter and stuff like that where it's pretty much across the board where they added like a few frames of recovery. Like the frame situation after a move hits or is blocked is the same as it was in Tekken 7, but it happens a little slower. So both characters recover a little slower than they used to. And also I think everyone's kind of noticed this, but whiff punishing in general or whiff recovery in general is way worse than it was in Tekken 7, which is good. I think that you should be blown up if you whiff something. And they did that, largely to counteract the stupid range 6, range 5 poke, let me just jab from way out here sort of thing. But yeah, those whole interactions, block, hit, whatever, have slowed down. And yeah, I think that's feeding the aggression because people are like, okay, I have a little bit more time to decide what I want to do next. I don't necessarily have to hold back here. So people are like, well, I actually have an option. You know what? I have my stupid sidestep thing. I have a crushing stance or whatever it might be. And they're like, I'm going to hit some buttons here. So I think that's feeding the whole thing. But I've been complaining about that for a long time because there are certain moves that had interactions that were just way too fast. So like, even if you blocked it, it's like, you're never going to properly punish that. The one that I have complained about forever is Nina's sidestep 2. I hate that move so much. And I think it's still only -12, but for a long time it was -12. I could never punish it. It's like, it just happened so fast and she's recovered before I even realized that I blocked it.
I think it's -14.
Is it now? Okay. Good to know.
Yeah.
I'll have to look that up because I hate that move.
But it recovers so quickly that I don't think anybody ever really -14 punishes it.
Yeah, probably not. Yoshi's Flash is kind of an infamous example of that, right? Because the move happens before you even register that it has happened. So it's like, and no one ever like properly launch punishes that unless they read it. They read it coming.
Or if you got lots of Yoshi experience, I do get launched quite a bit when I do.
Oh, really?
But it's easier, on whiff
block
than it is on
block. Oh,
block.
yeah. I was going to say on whiff, it's more reasonable. On block, it seems so hard. Because if you're just blocking it, like you're thinking about other stuff. No, you're fine. Go ahead.
My example on the change to the whiff recovery and all that is laws 3+4, 4. Because now, if you wanted to be able to block punish 3+4, you do have to still do it really quickly. But then there's all that extra recovery on the 4. So you can duck the 4, and it recovers so much later than before that you can actually just kind of, like if you tried to fuzzy the timing between the two, you're probably going to get hit. I've ducked the 4 and tried to while standing punish like 1,000,000 times, and I get clipped on like the last frame of it.
And that's
very helpful, and I think that's actually why they did it.
Yeah, I think I agree with that. One, I think that you made that point earlier when you said that they've made a lot of the move list stuff with characters like fresh, even though it's like the same sort of general function. Like Laws 3+4, I think fits that perfectly, where everyone's so used to that muscle memory of the old one. And even though he's still using it in the exact same way as he used to, the timing on that third hit is completely different. So like you have to kind of relearn how that situation works. Yeah, that's a cool example.
It's not like they changed it in that way.
Right.
Because it still comes out, but you have like the extra frames.
Yeah. Even though it looks it's way slower, right? Like that last hit comes out way slower, but yeah, you still can't interrupt it. You're stuck there.
Now you have to make your choice. Am I going to try to punish here, or am I going to wait for that hit?
Yeah. Yep. Fully agree. That's a neat example. I like that example. I have to say with Law, just not to go off on too much of a tangent, but I absolutely love playing him and just spamming while standing for DSS. It's so fun because it's one of those things that has been locked, like it's been gate kept by execution for so long that just being able to do it is so fun. It's like having a cheat box, like where you just have a macro that'll do it for you. Like it feels just like that. Like get off me. Get out. This move was broken in Tekken 4, but just nobody could do it. But now I can do it all the time. And
I get that.
DSS forward 1 is safe, so it's just like boom, boom, and you can't interrupt it. It's like, get away from me. I'm just gonna do this over and over and over again. It's fun. It's really fun. He's super fun to play.
I think that actually is a good example also of how they improved everyone's neutral game all around. Because like drag, you know, top character, if you hit someone with a down two, I mean, you successfully hit somebody with a move, but after they get hit, I mean, people play defense on what you're going to do. Are you going to do running two? Are you going to do uh you know, a while standing move? So maybe I should sidestep that and then try to, you know, but for drag, it's it ceases to be this mix up anymore on hit, because now if you wanted to do a down two, you're like down two, okay, and then I have to stand up and do down two, and now I'm chewing up my frames way too much here. Or do I want to stand up into a different low move? Whatever the case may be, and they got to kind of fuzzy out the timing based on all of that. But now, of course, in 8, they gave him that full crouch low move. So now when he successfully hits you, he can successfully go into another mix up right away. And that's what makes his game so much better than it was in 7. But they kind of did that with a lot of people. Like, even if it's just adding a high move, which is really no new mix up or whatever,
Mhm.
it decreases the fuzzy defense.
Right.
And that's why I think I like 8 even the most already, is they've decreased people's easy fuzzy defense.
Yeah, I agree. It definitely even when you play it, like it feels like when people try to fuzzy stuff, you're like, that didn't work. That's not going to work. Like even when you see people trying, yeah, even when you see people trying to do it, you're like, that's not going to work. Which is nice because like option selects have been the gold standard in fighting games forever, but it's nice when they're just not there and you can take your offense, force people to actually like have some situational awareness.
Yeah, now, I mean, it's not to say that fuzzying isn't in the game,
Right.
but now it's going to be more person specific than it's going to be the overall character. Like, oh, well, you just do this and they don't have an option. I mean, it's a little bit better.
Right. Well, something very similar to that too is like how they changed the backdash canceling timings, right? Where like every character is now a little bit different, and maybe you're good enough to know and learn and remember every character's backdash canceling timing, but chances are you're just going to have your own personal timing, and it's going to apply to a character or not. So like your backdash canceling with character X is going to be a little bit different than someone else's, which I find interesting. But yeah, fun though.
Sorry, I went on too much of a rant on that one, but I kind of like.
No, you're good.
Each game they pad the or fight the fuzzy guard a little bit better, and I think this one they took the biggest step.
Mm-hmm. I agree with that. Yeah, I think when it comes to our discussion about Tekken, you know, I kind of had that prompt, which thankfully led us down this path. But aside from going into like the deep matchup talk, matchup analysis, which we're not going to do on this episode, at least from my perspective, I think we're still a little too early to like pick a character and do a deep dive for like a podcast like this. That, you know, that was perfect. I think that was exactly the discussion that I was looking for.
I think what you just said gave me a new idea for future podcasts.
What's that?
You probably don't want to necessarily do the character by character every time that you had been doing, because you've been there, you've done that.
Right.
I almost wonder if doing it matchup by matchup would be more fun, and you could have like listeners respond like, hey, give me Law versus Fang. And we can talk about the new things as we go and just address it matchup by matchup. I don't know. You could see if there's anybody who responds about that.
Well, there you go. There's the prompt for anyone listening. I like that idea too. I just need to create a spreadsheet. I can't remember what the hell it's called, where the particular kind of chart where you have the names on the top and names on the left.
Tale of the tape.
Yeah, well, and that way we can kind of keep track of which matchups we've talked about. It's the same chart that you would use for like a round robin or something like that.
Got it.
I can't remember what it's called though. It has a specific name, but I'll have to like put together one of those and then we can start knocking those out. Because I think it would be fun not only to do that, but like not try to focus too heavy on one character, right? So like do like maybe talk about a couple matchups one episode, but the characters in those matchups are completely different, rather than like going through all of Dragunov's matchups, first and then moving on.
Oh yeah, that's what I mean. I mean like a specific matchup. So if somebody wanted to request one, we could talk about this character's strengths versus this character's strengths, the new things they have to look out for.
I think that helps.
The history of the fight.
I don't know about you, but that might help me too. Like keep my focus, helping me like continue to learn. Right. So like if somebody says, oh, hey, take a look at this matchup, even if it's characters I don't play, it's like, well, maybe I'll discover something with one of those characters that helps me in my matchup. And just, just kind of getting that depth of knowledge and actually focusing my practice mode time on something specific.
Right. Give some practical knowledge too.
Yeah. Now, in general, one thing, because we're starting to hit that hour mark. So, I know we've been pretty generous with you guys doing like an hour and a half, 2 hours the last couple episodes, but I think we'll do more of a standard one this time. But as we start approaching the end, the other thing that I was going to ask about, because I was just curious, your experience with it. How have you been enjoying the various modes? We can talk about ranked or player match if you want to, but there's the Tekken Ball. I know that seems pretty busted. I think that they need some adjustments there, but
it's still fun. I mean, it's supposed to be goofy, and I definitely like that they clearly put more work into it than they did in the previous ones. They did the thing like the grabs are almost like setting the ball, and you can avoid some of the chip or whatever with it. And then they gave like certain vertical moves. I think usually like a flop type move, give it that upward spike. I think it's interesting in that way. I would almost rather see it as a 2v2 or something.
That would be
just
fun.
Just because it's fun. It's just a chaos game, and it's just like a side deal. It's nobody's, make it as exciting as you possibly can. Throw in some items. I don't care.
Right.
This is just a goofy game.
Well, I mean, I will go back to what I have been preaching about for years, and Namco just refuses to do it. But they should make an online mode, or not even an online mode. It can be offline too, or even offline exclusively. But those weird treasure battle rounds that you would have where there's something off about the match, like whether things are sped up or whatever, or everything launches or whatever nonsense, it should be like Smash. There should be a mode where you can go in and you can select those and play. And you play against other people. That would be amazing. And I don't know why they won't do it. It's a gangbusters idea. Like, what are you guys doing? It's been sitting there on the top shelf for 20 years and they won't take it down. Doesn't matter what the occasion is. They won't bring it down. They won't bring down the good stuff.
They clearly know how to do it. They do it in Soul Calibur.
Right. So like, come on, let's go. That said, I mean, I think it does appear that they are still working on additional modes for like future seasons, DLC, whatever. Because I think they talked about team battle. I know that Murray for sure mentioned it. He's like, we have gotten feedback about that. I don't know if they have said that they are actively working on a team battle, but I would not be surprised if we get a team battle in the future.
I want that one so much. That's the number one thing.
Because I mean, if you
look forward to it.
Well, if you look at the way that the new lobbies are set up, I mean, they're set up almost perfectly to run team battles, because you can pick those different, you can set up those different tabs and everything. So it's like, it's perfect. It's an absolutely perfect setup for a team battle. So yeah, I'm with you. I like the idea of a team battle, and I really hope that they do it sooner rather than later. Ranked is still, of course, a fucking mess. I really like I will say that I am genuinely impressed with the upgrades and everything that they did to the normal player lobby. I know that there have been issues, obviously, with the game itself, like crashing and whatnot, but at least the structure of the lobby and how it works is good. I think they did exactly what they needed to do with that. Ranked is just a shitstorm. I don't know what the hell they're doing with that mode. It's like it took them a patch just to figure out pluggers. Come on. Like, what are we
They
doing?
haven't even done anything with it yet. The pluggers.
Well,
That's the biggest complaint they do have.
Well, they haven't done anything in terms of. I think there's no like repercussions if somebody plugs, but they at least fixed some of the buggy stuff for the person who gets plugged on. So like there was that issue where like you would lose your streak, right? I think in some cases it might have even counted as a loss if somebody plugs on you. They seem to have fixed that. That doesn't seem to be there anymore. But yeah, I mean, we're 2024. Like online systems have existed since AOL. Like why are we still struggling with this? I don't get it. And fear the evil spreadsheet that Murray or Harada or whoever has, like whatever.
Yeah, more than I want people banned. I mean, there's things they should be banned for, but plugging, I don't know if they need to be banned for it. But I do think, I mean, they should get double or 4 times the loss points, or
Right.
you know, and then the other person should maybe get those points or something.
Yeah. Well, the point system in general is just a mess because in any modern like ranking system that uses points, there are multiple things that happens with wins and losses and streaks that help get people to where they should be. So like, for example, the more you get, for most like other rating systems, if you're on a streak, like as your streak continues to build, you get a little bit of like a percentage boost on how many points you're getting. So that way you can get out of whatever rank you're in faster because you're clearly streaking on people and you shouldn't be there. Now obviously there would be some in the weeds formula stuff going on. So, maybe that boost is very, very small up until you hit maybe like 5 wins or something, or 10 wins. But there's nothing like that in Tekken. Tekken does not have that in the slightest. Like you mentioned, if people try to do shenanigans or whatever with the plugging or whatever, even just losing a bunch in a row, typically in most rating systems, you will start to fall really fast because wherever you are is not where you should be. So, and it's, it sucks sometimes to go on a really big loss streak. But if you're in a rank or rating that you should be at, you should at least like be getting wins here or there. Right. So you have a lot of people, well, the pluggers are obviously a problem, but it goes both ways with that. But they also, like, there's a little bit of a placement match thing that happens when you first boot up the game, but that's probably something that they need to tweak because they're so scared of placing people like up into oranges and purples that they refuse to do that. So like the best I wasn't considering not even touching ranked when the game first came out, so I completely skipped the placement match thing. But I think it only gets you as high as greens, maybe. I think that's the highest it'll place you.
Okay.
But that's completely different than how most modern rating and ranking systems do it. Like normally, what they'll do is that they'll give you typically about 5 matches to try to figure out where you are. And you start in the middle, obviously, like a middle rank. And then if you win that, then they'll like start to boost you really fast. And then if you win all 5 of your placement matches, typically you're pretty high. You're not in like the S or A tier ranks, but they get you pretty high, which is what should have happened here. Because otherwise you just have people, you have all these good or high level players just beating up on orange and below, and those people get frustrated, which is where a lot of where a lot of the pluggers happen, which is why that's such a problem in the blue ranks, because you have people who the rank inflation when everyone was jumping in when the game first started, and you have all these people that got into blues but probably shouldn't be there, and they don't want to lose. They don't want to lose out of blues. So yeah, so the whole thing is
on something that they could do to change that point system a little bit, because I feel like you should maybe lose half the points or something if you like let's say you lost the first out of the three because it's best of three right now,
Mhm.
right? If you lost the first one, but you decide to stick with the rematch, I feel like you should get half the loss points there. And maybe if both character or like both players win one of the matches, that third one should just be worth like triple the points or something. So then it motivates people to like stay in, play the set, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah, no,
That's
that's a good idea as well. Fighters are a little unique in the sense that those matches are so fast relative to, I
Mhm.
mean, you look at any other game, whether it's,
Call of Duty or
yeah,
something.
Call of Duty, I mean, RTS, MOBAs, like those, it's fine to just base a rating or a ranking or whatever off of a single game because they last a long time. There's a lot involved in those. But fighters are, it's all about adaptation, right? Like you can get rolled your first match and then roll them two in a row right after that. So yeah, I agree. Like that's, it's clear that everyone's kind of on board with the first to two format. You know, that's standard for tournaments. And then that's how Namco built the rematch system in this game. So that makes sense. Yeah, that makes sense. And then if you win and bail after the first one, that should count for less, right? So it should be one of those things where you don't even get points after a single match until you know who's going to rematch or not.
Hmm.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think that there should be some adjustment there. But there's a lot of things like that that they could do with the system that they just don't because it's weird. There that ranking system, you know, it's at this point it's legacy, right? So like that ranking system goes back as far as Tekken 5 for sure. Um I don't know. Tekken 4 never went to arcades, right? It was straight to console. I
Yeah, it
think.
went
I
straight to
think.
console.
Yeah.
I think that's pretty much the reason they realized they needed patches.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it could be. But Tekken 5, I mean, that was when they introduced that ranking system, and it's more or less been the same since Tekken 5. They have not really overhauled the ranking system all that much. I think the only difference from iteration to iteration is that they've kind of slightly changed how rematching works, but that's it. Like the point system is still largely the same. There are more ranks now than there were in Tekken 5, I think, but it's still. I mean, you and I have experience with the card system, right? So
Ye-
that's old school for anybody listening. That's way old school. But I think that they, I don't know. I think with Tekken 8 is a little different because there wasn't an arcade release, so I think even in Korea and Japan, it's not really an arcade game. It's a console game now. But in Tekken 7, you know, they were playing it a lot in arcades. And it's just kind of a like the way the ranking system is set up right now, it's just kind of a throwback to that. And because Korea and Japan still had a thriving arcade scene for so long, they just didn't really feel like changing it, even though it has not. It's certainly anachronistic now. If you look at every other competitive game of any type and the way that, not even video games, like you can look at any other, you know, something like chess or whatever that uses a rating, a rating system. Chess is the gold standard, and they've been doing it for God,
mhm.
how many hundreds of years at this point. So, well, I think the rating system was probably introduced early last century, but still, that's over a century of rating experience, and we're just going to ignore them. Sure. Cool. Let's do that. Anyway, all right, enough bitching about about ranked.
Right?
Hopefully, we'll end it on an optimistic note. Hopefully, we get more fun modes. We get some team battle, and you know, like I mentioned, I think that everyone's pretty satisfied with the new player lobbies. It's just a matter of people or Namco or whoever just kind of fixing the various issues that cause the game to bug out or crash. I think that's probably the biggest thing, which is something that every game is going to have to deal with upon first release, because there are so many different platforms that a game releases on, and especially on PC, everyone's PC setup is different. So you have
Right.
you have to give them a little bit of a leeway to try to fix issues with certain setups and certain settings and what have you. But otherwise, I think the game has run run pretty smoothly for everybody. So on that note, okay, we've eclipsed the hour mark. So we didn't get to do this last time because we were talking Tekken for so long, but I did want to go back to this thing I mentioned in the first episode where at the end of our episodes, we're going to diverge completely away from Tekken and just talk about anything we want, just a little topic of maybe it's something going on with us or just something cool that we noticed or saw or whatever it might be, as long as it's not Tekken related. So I don't, since I'm kind of throwing that out there at random, Dan, do you want me to go first, or is there something that's going on in your life or that you have done something fun lately?
I guess I should even, I was going to say I don't really have anything. I've been doing lots of work, but we recently, probably a year now, we have this cat. His name's Bacon. I love that cat.
Yeah.
So I've gotten a cat, and he is my buddy. So that has been a wonderful thing. And he's actually sitting here staring at me like, when are you going to sit down on the floor? Because that's what I do, is I sit down on the floor and we look out the back patio window together, and he just lays in my lap, and it's wonderful. But he's staring at me like, when are you going to stop pacing?
And he is the one, if I recall, that you have the shirt, right?
Yes, I have a shirt for
the Hawaiian shirt. Yeah. So hopefully if Dan here makes it out to some tournaments, some of you might be able to get to see this, but he has basically a Hawaiian shirt with this cat's face all over it.
Yeah, never been a cat person, but I love this cat.
It's
He's
funny.
My G.
Oh, which, speaking of, I guess I can mention this now to you because you brought it up in the past. So the big event that's going on in my life, we've talked about this, I think on other stuff on the channel, but so I live in Iowa. Dan here lives in Minnesota, and because the Iowa, at least the Tekken scene, is pretty small, just over the years I've been more connected with the Minnesota Tekken scene rather than the Iowa Tekken scene. And for a long time we've considered and talked about moving up there, and it seems like we're actually going to be pulling the trigger on that this year. But because of that, I'm still planning on going to Combo Breaker because I've kind of already reserved the room and bought my tickets and everything. And I think that is happening. Yeah, that is happening early enough that I don't think it'll impact our move or anything. But probably we'll have to skip Evo, right? So because I know you had mentioned that you and your kid might go to that.
There was a strong likelihood, but I think he may have
moved on.
Other things on his mind. Yeah, he wants to get a job and all these other things. So
fair enough.
We'll see.
Yeah, it happens. Kids are whimsical, right? They got social lives that are ever evolving, so things like that can happen. But I for sure am out of the running for Evo because that'll be right in the middle of us like trying to coordinate this whole stuff. So unfortunately, I'll have to miss out on that. But the good news though is that you guys have way more events up there, right? Because you just have a bigger Tekken scene. So that's exciting because in terms of like big events, I still plan on going to Combo Breaker every year because it's just fun and it's close by. We live in the region, so we can drive there. If I ever get the chance, maybe I'll fly out to Vegas or somewhere else. But in all likelihood, it's because the kids and just general adulting. I'm probably stuck with, locals, right? So being up there, though, is a good place to be stuck because you guys have regular things that go on. So I can actually show up and play offline with people regularly without having to worry about going to a big event and then worrying about, oh, hey, how many actual tournament sets will I get to play before I have to go.
Right.
So it's nice to have that more casual tournament atmosphere, I guess you could call it. So
please feel free to join if you're in the surrounding states too. Come. We
have
regular events.
Yeah, and they're pretty big, by the way. So yeah, if you live in the Midwest, or even Canada, and you have a passport or whatever to get into Minnesota, yeah, the stuff that they run, I know that there's weeklies and everything, but they run a monthly that I think tends to get like over 30 people. So it's like, I guess that's about the size of like an old school major, like a major 25 plus years ago.
Shout out to Run the Mix and Pete who runs it all.
Yeah. So they get good turnouts. So yeah. So if you're in the area, definitely check it out. I think that's the only big thing I and it actually is Tekken related, but also not Tekken related, because we're moving up there. So, but should be pretty fun.
Absolutely.
That's all I got. So what we'll do is I think we hit the time mark that I was looking to get, which is nice. So any last words or anything you want to throw out there, Dan, before I do some wrap up?
Keep grinding. That's all
Yes.
I got.
Yes. I will echo that statement. I mean, we are just in the nascent period, right, of this game. It's not there's so much that people are still learning and still acclimating to is probably a good word.
New tech every day.
Yeah. So this game is going to evolve a ton in the coming months, and it's really exciting. And like you said, it's really fun to play so far. It's really, really fun to play, and it's not boring in the slightest, that's for sure. So with that, I'll call it an end to this podcast. Again, check out the Patreon and all that stuff. Don't forget that this is up on Spotify, but everyone who's listening and supporting the channel, thanks a lot for that. Really, really appreciate that. I'll keep working in my free time to not only do the guides, but any other content that I can think of. I'm trying to, if anyone has ideas, by all means, throw them out, but I am trying to brainstorm like maybe some smaller videos that we can put out to keep you guys busy. Things that are still hopefully informational and stuff. I need to just start doing that in general. Like when we find anything cool, just make a quick video and throw it up. But I got to figure out a process for that. Either way, lots to come with this game, because we're going to be playing it a lot going into the future. So we hope that you guys stick with us. You guys stay safe. Like Dan said, keep grinding, and we will see you guys in the pits. Have a good one.